What up, nerds, and welcome to another bodacious episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 337, recorded on Sunday, September 19th, 2021. Tonight, we're talking about the winner of the September poll pick, which was Night of the Demons from 1988. Before we get into the review, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randu. How do, sir?
Festering fuckwads! What's up, buddy?
I love that introduction. Hell yeet. Ooh. I let that one slip. I'm a little embarrassed. I'm sorry.
You should be. I was just channeling my inner stooge because, my God, there's so many good lines we'll get to later from that man.
So many good lines. Last but not least, calling in from the Southern Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up? It's your boy Spooky Stains. We are heading into the final week of September.
Yeah.
It's time.
It's real.
Was that my key? Were you mimicking the soundboard?
It's time, boys. This is what we live for right here.
Yeah, this shit is real. We're in it. We're
My God.
in the thickness. Down with the thickness.
Well, I mean, that's year round, buddy, but
Spooky Saison. We wait all year for it. Here it is. We love it. We're talking about a proper Halloween film tonight. Pretty stoked about it. But before we get into the review, let's tackle a little bit of housekeeping. We actually have a lot of shit to cover for housekeeping. So let's go ahead and do this. Here's another reminder. Our October poll pick is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're going to talk about this October. The theme for October's classic horror movies. The three movies to vote between are Carrie, Child's Play, and Psycho.
Hey, Bob, how are those numbers looking?
Pretty consistent. There's a few more votes cast this week for sure, but Carrie remains in the lead. Child's Play second, and Psycho is pretty far back there.
Okay, Carrie's
ain't
getting
nobody. No love for Marion Crane in this crew.
No, definitely not. Carrie's the fan favorite of the month, so it's looking like we're probably going to be talking about the OG Carrie, which I'm stoked about. It's a good movie. They're all good movies. I mean, let's be clear, but
yeah, I mean, it's a classic month, so
classics.
No stinkers, but make sure you get your votes in before the end of September, and we'll see what we're talking about this October. In other Patreon news, we have not one, not two, but three brand new patrons. We got to give mad shouts out to. Holy butt fucker.
I'm really channeling Stooge today.
I love it. I love the big Stooge energy. I'm here for it. Big thanks to Matt S., Eliza, and Clayton for signing up on Patreon and showing us some love. Every dollar you guys contribute goes right back into the show. It really means a lot to us, helps us keep the lights on around these parts. And as always, we owe you all this straight chilling salute. This goes out to Matt S., Eliza, and Clayton.
Slap my ass.
Uh-huh.
Slap me in the ass.
One more time.
Oh, God. Slap me in the ass.
Ooh, we are cherry red, boys.
Damn.
Pop some blood vessels on that ass.
All three of
Is
our
Randy like super loud all of a sudden?
No, not for me.
Am I?
Anyway,
that might just be for me. All right,
maybe that's specially for you, Juice. Just for you.
You know,
thank you.
We just know how you appreciate it.
In other Patreon news, so we did reopen the You Pick the Flick tier today. And this was for the last quarter of 2021. There were 5 spots. They all went very quickly, as they tend to do. So congratulations to those of you that grabbed a spot, which were Miles, Alice, Catalin, Logan, and Brandon. Congratulations, and again, thanks for all you guys supporting us on Patreon. And we'll be talking about those movies real soon. Good shit. In other Patreon news, we had so much.
Whoa.
News. We announced this last week officially. We're throwing our very first Chilloween party. So this is a Patreon event. If you support us on any tier on Patreon, you'll be able to join this event. It's taking place Friday, October 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be hanging out on Zoom. We're going to be playing some horror trivia. We're going to be hosting a surprise movie screening, and we're also going to have a costume contest in which we're going to be handing out prizes for the winner of trivia and for the winner of the costume contest. Again, that's Friday, October 15th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mark your
That's
calendars.
a straight chillin' exclusive.
It is.
Oh, Patreon exclusive.
Yeah, Patreon exclusive.
Nobody's ever done a Zoom hangout
Emphasis.
ever before us.
Emphasis on the loose.
So the juice is loose. Am I right?
God damn. There are so many levels to what you just said.
That's true. That is true. The last,
Few of them are good.
The last bit of Patreon news I have, and this is a brand new announcement. Looks like Elvira's coming back to Shudder for her 40th anniversary. She's going to be doing a little watch party over on Shudder. It's called Elvira's 40th Anniversary, Very Scary, Very Special, which is taking place at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Saturday, September 25th, only on Shudder. We're going to be doing a watch party similar to the way we do with Joe Bob. We'll send out a Zoom invite that'll be posted on all of our socials just before showtime. So if you want to join up on Zoom and hang out, watch some Elvira, that's going to be happening Saturday, September 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I mean, it's honestly shocking that it took them this long to jump on that
I'm pretty
train.
surprised too, especially with like the success of Joe Bob and everything
Exactly.
going on with that. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I kind of just in the back of my mind assumed this was already going on in some.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, unless there was some like legal obligation she had to that prevented her or something, which I'm sure is the case with some of these folks. But I mean, Sven Goldie's still going, so I don't imagine we'll see him on there as a host anytime soon. But I want them to just gather all the hosts they can, because that's the most fun aspect of Shudder is the communal watch. So
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I think she's been trying to work something out with them ever since Joe Bob kind of came back and blew up. And maybe they just finally decided that, like, hey, 40th anniversary, it makes perfect sense. We'll kind of have an anniversary party for you. And I'm sure if this does really well, that they will have more regular Elvira programming, because why wouldn't you?
yeah. I hope so. The stars aligned on that. I would be quite. I mean, they could have year-round fucking horror hosts doing shit.
Yeah.
Like have Elvira in the spring, Joe Bob in the winter, whatever, and then whoever else in between.
Us. Have us in between. Why not?
Have us. We're available.
We need a Shudder exclusive.
We'll make it work.
We're the natural third rung of that ladder, obviously.
Nobody else could fill those shoes. It goes straight to us. Yeah.
Be prepared to be bedazzled.
I'm prepared to be bedazzled.
That's all we got for Patreon news. Gentlemen, do you have any other news you want to tackle?
My house is clean.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Our houses are clean.
This house is clean.
Yeah. Time to get into the main event. We're talking about Night of the Demons, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Night of the Demons from 1988 with a runtime of 1 hour and 30 minutes. Written by
Bob,
Joe.
do you have this box?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I have this box. I'm stoked about it.
Thank God.
Bob had this when his collection was in its infancy.
True. So this is
a long-standing one.
This was put out fairly early by Scream Factory. It's one of their titles. It's got like a little blue line at the top. That's like how their packaging used to be. They don't really do that anymore. But first time I ever saw this is when I picked it up from Scream Factory. So shouts outs to Scream Factory. This was written by Joe Augustine, I think. Directed by Kevin Tenney. Stars Kathy Podwell, Alvin Alexis, Hal Havens, Linnea Quigley, a bunch of other folks. Plot synopsis is as follows. It's Halloween night and Angela is throwing a party, but this is no ordinary Halloween party. Everybody's headed to Hull House, a deserted funeral home, formerly the home of a mass murderer. But when the party goers decide to have a seance, they awaken something evil. And these party crashers have a thirst for blood. Now it's a battle to survive the night in Hull House. Gentle Mangs, had you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy, kick us off.
Yeah, I have seen this before. I didn't see this early in my life. I saw it in my 20s. It must have been somewhere, maybe I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago at this point. And yes, I would recommend it as a Halloween viewing experience specifically. This is not necessarily a movie that I would waste any other time of the year because it is one of those rare horror movies that is explicitly about about a Halloween party, excuse me. And just like it's kind of fits perfectly into the 80s schlock area of horror films. So if you're into that and you're into you're looking for something for Halloween specifically, this is a good go-to. Decent go-to.
Right on. Juice, what about you?
This is going to be a 50-50 split for me. So if you enjoy, campy 80s horror, then this is an absolute must watch if you've never seen it. I'd never seen it before. And again, with that same kind of caveat, it's a must watch, like Randy said, for Halloween. It's got great Halloween spooky vibes in it. If you don't like silliness in your horror, if you don't like that over the top kind of camp, then don't watch this because it's going to be a rough watch for you, I think. I don't think this movie in any way kind of transcends its little subgenre that it's in, but it does what it does well. So that's kind of a 50-50 split for me. Bob, you got this box. You love this movie. I assume you've seen it before.
Don't pigeonhole me like that, guy.
We all know Rob doesn't watch the things he buys, so that's
fair. That's
come
fair.
Come on.
Hey, come on.
Come on.
Around here, that means big money.
Your assumptions are pretty much spot on. Yeah, I've seen this.
Okay.
Seen this a handful of times.
Okay.
I do love this movie. It's super goofy, super campy. It's not reinventing the wheel in any way, but it's a very fun, enjoyable sort of party movie is how I would describe this. It's very much about a party, and it's also one of those movies that's kind of perfect to throw on when you're having a party. If you have people over and you don't want to necessarily like hang on every single sentence, every little bit of dialogue, but you want something kind of fun and entertaining on the screen, This fits that bill perfectly, I think. And it's also one of those movies that like I only watch around Halloween. It is definitely about Halloween, so like don't watch this in July. It'll be weird. So yeah, I mean, if that sounds interesting to you, throw it on. It's big dumb fun, and I get a pretty big kick out of it. So some qualified recommendations from the Straight Chilling crew, but pretty positive, I would say. I don't know.
Generally.
Slam your eyeballs into it. We are going to spoil the shit out of this movie. Without further ado, here comes that spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
Bob, let's hear that plot synopsis, please.
I got it all typed out. Here is exactly what happens in this movie, and it'll be perfect with no errors, I guarantee it. So, Angela and her friend Suzanne are throwing a Halloween party in an abandoned funeral parlor with a checkered history. Stooge, Helen, and Roger are going to the party, and on the way, Stooge taunts an old man by mooning him. The old man curses him and another passing teenager by the name of Judy. The old man spills his groceries, and we see he's carrying apples and razor blades. Judy and Jay pick up their friends Max and Franny to go to the party as well. When all the kids arrive at Hull House, Judy's ex-boyfriend Sal crashes the party. While at the supposedly haunted Hull House, Max explains one of the Hulls went crazy and slaughtered his family. Max also explains there's an underground river surrounding the building, and that keeps the spirits in. They also built a brick wall on top of the river, which eventually keeps the kids in when the gate mysteriously vanishes. Angela suggests doing a seance. They all look into a mirror and try and see their past lives when a demon appears in the mirror. The mirror then falls over and shatters. We then see a demon come out of the incinerator in the basement. which eventually possesses Suzanne. Suzanne kisses Angela, causing her to become possessed as well. Judy and Jay explore the house. Jay tries to have some sexual intercourse with Judy, but she shuts him down. Franny and Max explore the house and bang in an empty coffin. Roger and Helen try to leave, but can't find the gate. Angela starts dancing and scares Sal away. Stooge makes out with Angela, and she bites his tongue off, causing him to become possessed. Helen dies off screen and eventually falls on top of the car Roger is sitting in. Jay bangs Suzanne, and she gouges his eyes out. Stooge finds Max and Franny in the coffin, snaps Franny's neck. He also chops off Max's arms by slamming the coffin lid down upon him. Judy gets chased throughout the house and onto the roof. Sal is tackled off of the roof by Angela and gets impaled. Judy and Roger are now left. They get chased into the crematorium in the basement. Judy breaks a gas line and lights it on fire, eventually burning Stooge and Angela. Judy and Roger are then chased outside and narrowly escape by climbing up some barbed wire hanging down the brick wall. The next morning, Roger and Judy walk past the old man's house from the beginning of the movie. He curses them again. The old man's disgruntled wife apparently baked a delicious apple pie with a special surprise. We see the old man eat several bites, and then razor blades burst through his neck. She then says, "Happy Halloween, dear." Roll credits.
God damn, these people are confusing.
Yeah. So, as you might gather from what I just read, there's not much of a plot to this movie. It's just sort of like a series of events happening. There's a lot of like cat and mouse when everybody finally arrives at the whole house. But there's really not like a general arc to this to speak of. It's very much like about the experience of watching the movie. For me anyways, it's about the atmosphere, it's about the ride. It feels like you are at the party with these kids. Like nobody is like learning life lessons or like no characters are like being developed or anything like that. It's really just like kind of
I don't know, that kid at the beginning. He's learning some life lessons about his sister's tits.
Oh, dude, that kid is obsessed with his sister's breasts. Like
that kid is her sexuality in general. It's pretty disturbing. I don't know who you got. Who you got in a fight? Yabos or bodacious boobies? Who you got?
That what Bob mentioned is going to be one of my biggest critiques today, and why my kind of recommendation was so soft, I guess, is it really is. Once they kind of start popping off, it really is just. To me, it became tedious. You know, I get the idea of the kind of campy special effects and they look good. And that's why I said it does like what it's trying to do well. But that can only carry me so far. When it gets to a point to where there's hardly even any dialogue anymore, there's like these characters are completely disposable and it's just people running through the same hallways over and over and over again saying, we can't escape. We can't escape. But like it just becomes very repetitive at like the 45-minute mark. And
and I would agree to a certain extent because like I think we all agree. It sounds like there's the plot is almost insignificant in this, and it suffers for two reasons because of that. One is that in the middle section, there is a lull. There's a bit of a lull in things happening where, you know, it might be good for a party setting like Rob suggested, which I totally agree with. Like there's basically a whole music video of Angela dancing in this fucking thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Which is fucking awesome in some regards, but stupid. It's stupid. And, you know, and then eventually with the plot, like it should have really like climactically ended with the crematorium scene, probably where she burns her friends alive, basically.
Yeah.
That would be kind of the natural way to end, but I guess they wanted to get her out of there and like show them escaping and all that stuff. And for whatever reason, like the continuation at that point is where I really agree with Justin's assessment. That's where it really dragged for me because it's like, okay, we don't need to see them climbing this wall 2 times. Like we don't need to see that happening. Like I like seeing them all together, but it didn't feel climactic at that point. It felt like they undercut their own climax a little bit.
I agree generally speaking, but I do like the idea that they seem to be playing with here. Where like, as long as you're on the property of like Hull House, there's no way to defeat these demons. Like you have to escape the property. You can't kill them. Like,
I get that. there's an internal logic to it, but this is not the movie where internal logic matters very much.
That's true. That's a fair point. Yeah.
And I actually think it, like, kind of bouncing off of Randy's point of, you know, where it should have stopped. I felt it actually on both ends as well, because I was measuring it, and really, like, things don't, this is about an hour and a half. I think it's actually a little bit long, maybe about 140, but, things don't start popping off until about the 40-minute mark. And so on the first half of the end, I found it quite tedious, where there's nothing really interesting happen. It's just a bunch of shithead kids continuously sassing each other, or playing pranks, or trying to get laid for 40 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, and they're meant to be obnoxious, killable people. But when you have to sit with them for 40 minutes and nothing happens, and then the back half of this film, like, adds an extra 20 minutes of them just running through hallways, it's like you're pretty much hoping that I am just completely captivated by maybe the middle 30 minutes of this film. And that's like what they bank on.
I love the character introductions. Like, the first half of this movie is extremely entertaining to me, because everybody who's introduced is like so goofy and over the top, and they're saying such like ridiculous things, man. So like the intro of this movie, it, like the credit sequence is what I'm specifically talking about. Like, it is just like this really wonderful animation that I
was going to talk about that too.
You should, because you're an animator and you know what's up.
Please continue. I'm sorry.
But it sort of like sets the scene for like this wonderful, like very Halloween centric movie. And then you roll into it, and like these kids are all like squatting up, getting ready to go to this Halloween party. We see the character of Stooge. He's got a jack-o'-lantern strapped to the hood of his car, which I just fucking love that. And like Quigley and Angela and her squad's like robbing the convenience store. And you've got this weird kid who's like making comments about his sister's boobs. And then the boyfriend comes over, and the mom offers him like these nasty little fudge logs that look like shits, like little cat shits.
That was a weird little detail. I found it very funny, but it was like,
seems
so
like
odd.
It was, it's like a writer's room full of dudes that are just like, all right, let's make a bunch of Halloween-y jokes. What do you got? And it's clearly a bunch of like college age or not too long after dudes making fart and dick and pussy jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is
and
what
to
it
be
is.
To be fair, like those moments I was fine with too. And I enjoyed like even Stooge's intro. And I was just like, this is such a ridiculous character. And I was excited to see kind of where he was going. The other one, like, I guess Stooge was the only one that I was really like, this is going to be entertaining. Like, I'm excited for this character to take me somewhere. Everybody else was a little more obnoxious. However, that I would say maybe that takes up about 20 minutes. And then these characters come together in the house, and it carries on for another 20 minutes where like, okay, I already know who these characters are, and I'm not really getting anything new, I guess, necessarily. And that's kind of where it got too long for me. I mean,
it had a few spooky moments in there. It had like the seance thing. I mean, it was intended to be spooky, for us, it doesn't really land that way necessarily, because it's just, I don't know. To me, like, this movie makes up for a lot of it fills in a lot of the gaps with charm. I think this movie is pretty charming in its campiness. Like, we talked about camp has been brought up a lot this week because of Malignant coming out and all the discussions going on about that. This is the kind of camp that I'm more into, and it's kind of like a rare one where it's like either it's completely unknowingly campy, like Sleepaway Camp is in my mind, or it's like this where it's completely. This movie knows exactly what the fuck it is. It has no pretensions whatsoever. This movie is going for what you're seeing exactly. Yeah, and I appreciate that about it. And like, they're going so big with everything. Everybody in this movie is screaming their lines no matter what. Like, everyone. And I don't know. I think that's more charming. To me, it seems like this whole movie is like the in-between song segments of Little Shop of Horrors, but with a hair metal twist. I can get down on that. And like, it's like Rob said, to me, that's why it works for me on like an aesthetic level. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, I get your point, but it sort of like sustains me to have like a few spooky moments interspersed with like Stooge or Jay being a total shithead. And what's the lead girl's name?
Judy.
Judy, and Judy being like put out and like totally like shat on or whatever. And like, I can get down on those things really, and they sustain me until we get to the action gory bits, which I will argue is, to Justin's point again, is a little bit further and farther between than I'd like.
Yeah.
Was anyone else blown away that Raj was like the one who survived when he was just a big old bitch? I kind of felt that too, where I was like, okay, really? I can get down with Judy, where Judy is like doing shit. I got, some Nightmare on Elm Street vibes. Like, okay, she's actually fucking pulling her weight around here. And Raj is just the biggest fucking bitch. And he's the one who survives till the very end. I was like, I want this fucker to die.
I don't know. I was pulling for Raj early because he was the one that was like, you know what? My daddy's a preacher. I don't fuck around with this stuff. I need to get out of here.
Raj is the smart one, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Like he sees the writing on the wall and he pieces the fuck out. And eventually the only thing he really does, like, that I can recall off the top of my head that's like super cowardly from that point is he totally pales on Judy at one point. He says, "Oh, fuck this," and jumps out a goddamn window
several times. In the boiler room, he pretty much just bishes out and like crawls in the corner while Judy goes catatonic.
But I don't know. He does. I don't consider that bitching out necessarily, or I don't consider that like being a coward because you're being attacked by fucking demons. How many people
but Judy's out there like, Raj, help me! Like, let's get a fucking weapon. Let's do this shit. Yeah, it takes a while.
It takes a minute. Yeah. Judy is definitely like the femme fatale in sheep's clothing in this movie. She does innocent sweet for so long, but she's the get shit done piece in this whole board game for sure.
Yeah.
Except for the time where she's locked up by Jay, and I want to talk about Jay because that guy sucks on every level.
Yeah, Jay's a huge piece of shit, and he tries to like guilt Judy into having sex with him. He's like, "Oh, I heard about you and Sal," and she's like, "Fucking, I never did anything with Sal." And he's like, "Well, whatever, babe." And then he like locks her in a room and just leaves her.
That's the thing is, yeah.
What the?
He's
fuck?
like, I thought you'd be excited about like she didn't want to fuck on a literal like corpse draining table. Is that really like?
Yeah, that guy's got no skill, man. He's just also old bitch.
He's just crying because he's not being handed.
Though. I love Stooge's moves because I love like the difference.
I love Stooge is.
Yeah, I do, because at first, he's like really obnoxious and he's in your face or whatever, but he makes like no bones about it. Jay's kind of like that snake in the grass where he's like, babe, oh, babe, where Stooge is like, hey, yeah, you're getting down. I'll get down with you. I think Sal is kind of that
guy. Yeah, like Stooge and Sal are kind of like respectable to a very minor degree because they wear themselves on their sleeves.
Yeah, they're not trying to like coerce anyone. They're just like, hey, you're down
comparison to Jay. Yeah, exactly. Sal, like Jay is like trying to hide his shit, and he's doing badly at that.
Yeah,
I enjoy Sal's character on like surface level bullshit where he's like obnoxiously like I don't know, you're this weird Italian kid, and he's just like, hey babe,
he's just like absolutely so channeling Dice Clay like insanely.
Hey,
he's so. Hey. It's like, whoa, I'll knock your ears off. Shit like insane shit.
That's better.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, watch out or I'll get after you. So I don't know. I can't do it. But it's
Hey kid, go get your sister for me, You bother me.
Hey, don't get smart with me, kid, huh? Like shit like that. Oh my God, I love it. It's like super, super over the top. That's like the Cooter voice, like that I hear in my head when I imagine the generic Cooter is basically Sal. But Sal actually like for the most part is pretty on the money most of the time. He's a shithead, like the way he talks, and he's like very much machismo bullshit, but he's not like sacrificing people the way Jay is willing to. I think that's pretty interesting that, you've got Judy with these two suitors, basically. One who she may or may not have given it up to, which was Sal on the first date. And then one who's acting like a total dick at the beginning. And then Jay, who's he's the prototype of the hero. And they're playing some very basic subversion games with those two characters, I think. They don't really make great on that because Sal at the end saves her life.
Well, that was the thing. Is like, I liked the kind of twist of like, oh, Sal's kind of actually stepping up, and he's in some kind of way being honorable, but they set him up as such kind of a slimy bastard at the beginning that it just didn't play as strong as I guess it could have, because I just didn't like him until at least, Raj was there and he was bishing out, and then Sal steps up and tries to at least, save people.
Right.
But then he just kind of goes out too. And that's kind of like what I felt with a few of these characters, where they just kind of go out, and some of the kills and like effects definitely look cool, but a lot of it felt, I guess, underwhelming, or that it happened so quick that I was like, I wish there was more to that, I guess.
I agree. I think that Sal in particular, because they have this interesting, at least like the closest thing to an interesting subversion going on, like they're playing with that comedically a little bit, but they're not really making good on that as an arc. That could have been the arc of the movie, is like Judy like discovering that a clean demeanor doesn't mean a good person, and Sal being like, I don't know, it could, like I said, it's very basic, but the rough kid from down the street who talks tough and all that shit might actually be the person that'll step up for you in your time of need. I think that's not like a lot, but it's something. And I think if they press that button a bit harder when he finally gets it, I think it would have played a lot better. They did set him up as shitty at the beginning, but I think that also they kind of don't fully negate the idea that Sal and Judy had sex on the first date or whatever. And I don't know, if they had like a quiet moment between those two where he's like, hey, you never called or whatever, or like, oh, were you ashamed or something? I don't know. They could have done like very small things to make that work a little bit better as a narrative. And they just didn't do it, because this, like I said, this movie knows what it is. And it's just pressing it's spinning these other plates a lot harder is basically what's happening.
This movie is not really trying to build character arcs. It's trying to present to you characters who say things like, eat a bowl of fuck. That's what this movie is trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. James Rolfe sort of stuff.
I guess that's kind of, I feel like I get caught, especially since we were talking about Malignant. I get caught in these kind of positions where it seems like I really don't like campy movies, or I don't like silliness in my movie, where actually in this kind of movie where that's what they're going for, I get that, and I can appreciate it, and I can appreciate the craft. But even to me, in a movie like that, that's like, this is what we're going to give you. The only person who I found that met a quality of that type of entertainment was Stooge. Everybody else was just very kind of bland in what they were trying to do. So like, if more people were almost like a caricature like Stooge, then, to me, it would be more entertaining. He was my anchor for entertainment. And and anytime anybody else is on screen, I just don't really give a shit.
See, I kind of disagree. I understand that he's definitely the biggest in the movie, biggest character, the least ignorable person in the movie by design. But I mean, look at Sal. How are you not going to say that dude's chewing the scenery? How are you going to look at Judy and not say she's living that fucking role? Angela is doing it too. Linnea Quigley is out of her fucking mind in this. Before she even gets possessed, she's out of her fucking mind.
She's, I don't know. She's like showing her ass in the convenience store and then gets possessed and puts lipstick.
I love that scene.
Nipple. Yeah. What? What's happening? What?
I mean,
that was kind of nuts.
I think he's just the one that really, really stands out, and it's reasonable to say that because he just does. Like, I think I think it's by design, but
they
are big too.
They have their roles, but I guess so Linnea Quigley, her makeup scene was actually cool, so I will give her that. But her establishing, she's just showing her ass in the convenience store, I don't find that. I get what it is, but I don't find it particularly entertaining. It doesn't really, it's not doing anything for me. It makes me understand what the character is, but I when Stooge is on screen, I am entertained. I am engaged. When she is showing her ass in the convenience store, I understand what's happening, but I don't care.
Okay. Well, you can't really argue with that.
Yeah.
It's very much just how you're feeling about it. But to me, the argument is not that, whether or not you should be entertained. It's just that I think that they work on the same campy level, whether or not you like that in particular role. I would argue that for my money, Jay is the guy who whose actor needed to step up and be a lot more bombastic in some way. Like he's a shithead for sure, but he plays it almost too straight for my blood. He should have paid, or at least he should have been more like, I don't know, like the smug jock archetype. You know, that's the role he is basically.
I think Jay and Judy are sort of like the anchor of the whole story. They're supposed to be kind of like the normies, where like everybody else is sort of like a wild, amplified version of a normal person. Like even Franny and Max are like, we're going to go off and explore, and immediately bang in an empty coffin, whereas like, you know, normal people probably wouldn't do that. Franny is...
Whoa, speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, not
even they talk about how uncomfortable it is. I thought that was funny.
Franny is even like, you know, Andrew's like, let's do a seance. And Franny's like, fuck yeah, let's do a seance. Let's do a past life seance. I'm going to one up that shit. And everybody's like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Yeah. And
that was so interesting to me. It's like Franny is like right there for it.
Totally. Yeah. And you know, we've covered Stooge and Sal. Roger is a pretty grounded character, but he's like the smart guy who tries to leave immediately. Whereas like you rarely have that in horror movies, which is kind of refreshing to see. I wanted to touch on one specific scene, well, several, but this in particular. Whenever they're all doing the seance, and this is sort of like the catalyst for the rest of the movie where the shit hits the fan, they're all like looking in the mirror, and the mirror, like a demon appears in it, and it falls over and shatters, and then the camera does this sort of like top-down angle of the shattered mirror, and we see every single character reflected in a shard of glass on the ground. And it holds for quite a while, and they have like a whole conversation on that one static shot. And it's just like so like well constructed and like well handled. Like that scene for this movie, that feels like so highbrow for what the rest of this movie is.
I agree.
Like when that happens, it's like it kind of like smacks you in the face, like holy shit. Like the cinematographer knows what he's fucking doing in this movie. Like he's not playing around.
But not all the time. Like that's the thing is like it's inconsistent with that maybe. But like there's some like I don't know that to me is like just an elevated moment of this movie where it's like oh shit like they're trying something with this. Like they could have easily had that scene be not gone through the headache of having a bunch of kids stand blocked in a certain way so they could get their faces in the glass, but they chose to do that, and I thought that was pretty fucking. You know, I thought that was an engaging way of telling the story, even if the story isn't all that important. So I don't know. I thought that was fun. And I think that was like, that's a feather in the cap of the cinematographer. However, on the other side of things, you've got some like really silly shit, which is intentionally. So like he's on the other hand, he'll go like intentionally bad, like at the very last scene of the old man eating his fucking apples, which is such a ridiculous scene. But the way it cuts to all of a sudden it's full fucking razor blades coming out of his throat after he ate like a couple of little bites of an apple pie,
and like then talks to his wife, and then all of a sudden they burst out of his throat. Like
only when he realizes the razors take effect.
Yeah,
I mean that's some funny shit to me.
I like how that bookends the story, even though it really doesn't have anything to do with the core of the movie, but I kind of like that. It's like a weird, you know, like old piece of folklore, or like, you know, it's an old wives' tale or whatever. People putting like razor blades in their apples. That's why you can't go trick or treating. But I like that. I
wish it tied in more.
Integrated in this movie in some way.
I wish it was the mom, since it already showed her cooking crazy snacks or whatever. And because they almost set it up where nobody wants to accept her snacks. So it kind of is this fun. It would be this fun thing where like, oh, had you accepted it, you would have died because there's razor blades or something in it. So I feel like that was a bit of I like the idea and it was kind of fun, but I feel like it was a bit of a miss on that end.
I thought it was I like it for what it is. I like that as a little vignette, but I don't particularly care about it. To me, it like in a movie that's already sort of pretty disjointed, it's kind of even furthering that problem. The thing that holds this movie together is not at all the story or not the way things hang together. It's just the feeling of it. It's the way that it sort of it charms you. Like I said, it fills the gaps with charm for me. So it's kind of tough to replicate that. It's tough to praise that or fault that at the same time. It just kind of is, you know. I would, if I was writing this movie, I would not do it that way, but they did it, and I don't hate it. You know?
Yeah.
I like the like very strange lore that they build around Hull House. it's like complete nonsense to me that there's basically a moat, like an underground moat around this building that they then also build a brick wall on top of. Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. But that is somehow what's keeping all of the demons inside, keeping them on property. Like, it doesn't make sense, but I love that. And there's also, like, apparently Max's character is just like fucking the professor. Like, he knows everything there is to know about Hull House.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how we get all of this information through his character. And he also has this weird bit of dialogue where he's talking about like Native Americans who like settled on the land and didn't know that it was like evil, and like one of the Native Americans like went crazy and murdered his wife and like built a whole teepee out of her innards and like stayed underneath it. It's just like wild. It's wild shit that is disjointed and doesn't necessarily
it's so funny to
make sense, but I like it.
It doesn't make sense, but I like it specifically because it layers on top of itself so much to the point of absurdity. Like you've got 4 origin tales for the evil of this house that you barely need one in this movie. So the fact that he's like, oh no, and that like he could have just kept going. If they had done one more, he's like, oh yeah, and then there was this other thing where like a milkman came by and tore his eyeballs out or some shit. Like if they had done that shit just a little, pressed that button a little bit harder, I wouldn't have complained. But I thought it was funny as it was, like specifically because it's ridiculous.
It's got that
also
Fear Street vibes.
This brick wall or this house or whatever is capable of erasing a gate. Like, okay, this gate is no longer going to exist, but the barbed wire is still completely available. That's fine. That's fine.
If you're going to escape, we'll give you a way to escape, but it's going to be painful. So that's how the demons think. The little demon mask head in the smoke or whatever, I like kind of that effect a little bit, but it seemed kind of tacked on to me. And I wish that was either not in there or just maybe done, I don't know, integrated a little bit more. That's the thing.
It didn't seem as consistent with the other visuals of this movie, which with something I'm going to praise this movie on is definitely going to be the visual aspects, because I will say, you know, the girl painting her face, like that's a memorable thing outside of just regular gore. Of course, when they get burned, even, you know, when they become demons, and like there's just a lot of visuals in there. The demon was the one that stood out as looking just really cheap.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you're right. It is just sort of incongruous with the other sort of effects because it's not a bloody sort of affair the way that a lot of the other effects are. It's like this weird, like, I don't know, like 80s music video effect. That to me is like, this whole movie kind of feels like a hair metal video. And I kind of think I love it on that level.
It's got similar vibes as like Return of the Living Dead. It's got kind of that weird punk rock teenager vibe to it.
But that seemed more anarchic. This seems almost more like comedy version of that. It was just kind of crazy to say because that movie is so funny.
Yeah. See, I actually like that dance scene with Angela. I at least found it interesting and engaging. I was like,
it's bold to do that in the middle of your horror movie.
Yeah. I found it like, I don't know, like engaging. I liked it. It was something different. It wasn't something that I expected. It kind of gave this character a little more of an interesting vibe outside, like, oh, she's the goth chick. It just kind of made that seem more real, I guess. I don't know. I like that scene.
Not to get off tangent too much, but like I haven't seen any of the follow-up sequels or the remake of this movie. But I know that Angela factors in heavily in the sequels to this movie, which to me, I don't know if she stands out enough in this movie to make that necessary for me. I don't know what they justify that with or what they do that with. I'm guessing it doesn't matter very much like the writing of this movie.
Judy returns? Is that what you're saying?
No. If Angela returns as like, as like she's on the posters for all 3 movies. She's
really? Okay,
movie,
I didn't realize that. Okay.
So,
I mean, I guess the demon kind of starts to speak through her mostly, but I mean, it possesses everybody.
To me, it's just a little odd because like she's like she doesn't particularly stand out amongst her friends or whatever in the movie. to like, she has that dance scene or whatever, and maybe that's the big moment where it's like they're really trying to push home, like, okay, this girl is really channeling Satan here. She's really fucking doing it,
and it happens because of her. You know, she puts the party together. Yeah. It's her idea to do a seance.
It's her party.
Yeah,
you know,
she's the catalyst.
And I feel like it's maybe. I mean, I'm not upset by it at all, and it's fine. I just thought it was like when I realized that after seeing this movie the first time, I was like, so the other ones have her too? I mean, is that necessary even? They don't have to follow any fucking rules with the sequels of this movie. Like, they could do Bud the Chud style shit if they wanted to, and nobody would bat an eye because it's like, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was a little odd.
What did you guys, how'd you feel about the score of this movie? Were you a fan of the synth kind of vibe it was putting out, or nah?
Not 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of it. I liked the hair metal aspect of it more. Like whenever they played like metal music,
I would agree.
That was more the spirit of this movie to me.
The synthy stuff felt a little like choppy. I don't know. It was
It didn't groove.
Not smooth for me. I didn't like it.
I like the feeling it evoked more than the actual sound of it. It definitely felt a little like underbaked, a little clunky. Overall, I think I dug it though. It wasn't a home run, but I liked where it was heading. And that, like, the dance scene, I don't know if the name of that track is Stigmata, but they kept saying that shit in the chorus, like, over and over again, so it might
I liked that.
That shit felt, like, perfect for that sequence. And, like, Angela was, I forget the actress's name, but she was, like, a legit dancer, obviously. So, like, the choreography happening there is, like, fairly captivating, and, like, they have the strobe light going, and it really does, like, that whole sequence really, really fucking works. It works really well, which is obviously why it stands out in the movie.
It's so crazy that scene, like in any other movie, that would be the scene guilty of completely derailing the story or being just like filler or something like that. But it really doesn't feel that way in this movie. And I don't know if it speaks to the quality of that scene as much as it does the deficiencies of the other scenes, but it's one of those. I don't know. I just really like the scene, and overall enjoying the movie. It is easy for me when they do shit like that. The music, the synth stuff, I didn't like. I don't hate it at all. Like, I just don't think I particularly like it as much as other synth scores I've heard. Certainly, it's no John Carpenter work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not hitting that vibe. But I will say that I love the way it works in the intro sequence, which I didn't chime in on yet, but which is like, I didn't really know this until looking it up this week, but that is a pretty well-regarded title sequence amongst title designers. Like that, it's there's a website called Art of the Title where it's basically a compendium of like noteworthy title sequences and movies and shit and shows and so on. And like shit, like fucking like Seven is on there. Like To Kill a Mockingbird is on there. Like big fucking movies with like really interesting title sequences. This is listed among them because it works so well. And I was watching this with Becky and commenting before I knew that. I was like, man, this is like one of my favorite title sequences ever. This and like Reanimator are the perfect 80s title sequences, horror for schlocky horror. It's so simple. It's not, there's not much to it really. It's just great type design. It's just great fucking illustrations and really chintzy sounds. And I don't know. I love it. I just want
I loved it too. That title opening is amazing. It was a great kind of setup. It had great vibes. It looked really cool. Yeah.
It definitely sets the atmosphere for the movie, and like you kind of know exactly what you're getting into. And like that overall is what makes the movie like so successful in my mind. It's like all the decorations, the creepy setting of this like decrepit house, fog out the ass. Thank God. It's got the strobe lights.
Thank God.
That fucking,
like nothing I'd ever smelled before in my life.
The jack-o'-lantern on that fucking car, just like the whole feeling of it just feels like Halloween, and I love that it was able to pull that off so successfully. I think that's really why I fucking love this movie.
That might be the most capable part of the movie, honestly. Like on a boots to the ground level, I think it is.
It really is. I think its strongest point, and even with the opening sequence, like it almost, like you said, is kind of a hint, not just in the vibes you're going to get, but the visual aspects of this is the focal point. And that is what comes through with the effects, with, the aesthetic, and then, that opening sequence. That is what they put their time and effort into. And that is, I agree. That's like the best part of this movie, or what makes it shine, makes it kind of special.
I think it really, it probably honestly has a lot to do, like Rob said, with how much I like the rest of the movie. It really does, just it shows how effective a good opening sequence can be for a movie, how important it can be. Because if this movie started, imagine the intro to Halloween, but with the name Night of the Demons on it, with the score and everything. It's just an entirely different thing. It would not have been as enjoyable of a movie to me, because I would have been teed up for something entirely different. So,
yeah. There's some solid fire gags in this movie as well. There's that one sequence where Angela's hands are on fire, and then again, towards the end, they when Judy lights Angela and Stooge on fire, they're on fire for quite some time running around. So there are some stunt people really earning their fucking money, man. And also when Sal falls off the fucking roof, the second story roof, I don't know. There's some decent effects and some pretty dangerous gags that are entertaining as hell. You have something, Juice?
I'm no pyro expert, but I don't know if that's how gas works, because she busts that pipe open for a long time and it's just spewing gas into that room. And then she's like, I'm going to light shit on fire. I was like, you're going to explode. Dude,
that fire doesn't just stop at the end of the tube. I don't think.
I was like, gas fills a space. It's not this isn't a controlled flame.
It could have been propelled that direction. And if she if the whole room was filled, she'd be fucked. But it really should have had some sort of explosion, because it was on for a bit while she used. I will say, hey, they teed up the lighter. Hey, good job, writing, guys. Yeah, you teed it up.
Paid off.
Yeah. I got a couple of Halloween 5 vibes from this, where there were some scenes where they were just pulling them a little too long. Scenes that didn't really seem to matter. One that came to mind was her hanging from the roof for some reason. That one. And then also it was, I kind of think I know what it is. That one. And also the escape scene. So where they need to climb up the barbed wire to escape the thing. She's on that shit forever. And it's almost this way of kind of building tension, but it doesn't feel authentic to me. It doesn't seem well done. And because it's just her hanging from a ledge or hanging from the barbed wire where they could just reach her feet, it's oh, she's gonna get caught. But to me, it just goes on and on and on. I was like, this feels like, I don't know, kind of a failed attempt to build some kind of tension. I think of Halloween 5, where sometimes it's maybe they just didn't have enough script and they just stretched this out, except this movie ran for 140-ish, I think. And I was like, they could have cleaned this up. I think it could have been cleaned up a scotch.
I think that's a totally fair critique.
The runtime on the box is a tight 90 minutes. So maybe they could have cut a couple extra minutes here and there.
Man, okay. I guess
it would just a minute from that scene would have tightened it up. I didn't feel that way about the hanging from the roof scene so much, but that scene in particular, because like I said earlier, the fire should have been the climax, really, just structurally speaking, it seems like the climax. And then at that point, you're really just filling time. And if you're going to do that, that's fine. I just wish that it's not fine. It's it's not good, but you can work around it a little bit by just ADRing in some shitty one-liners from Demon Stooge, or if you're still in the writing process, you could have part of her dress rip and have it reveal a sexy leg moment or something like that. They show her leg get burned by Stooge's touch. Maybe there's something else that could be done to do another gore effect there. They just kind of really do linger on her hanging there, them just nipping at her heels, and Roger trying to help her falling and then trying to help her again. And it was, I guess, a moment for Raj to sort of make good finally, which he did, and I was appreciative of that. But it dragged too long, and they could have mitigated that some way.
Yeah.
Gentlemen's, it's about time to land that plane. Do you guys have any other main topics you want to hit on before we rate this movie? Negative.
No, I think I covered all my major points.
I'm good.
I was just looking at my notes. Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I would say is
Pumpkins.
Thank God for that. All right, let's go ahead and rate Night of the Demons from 1988. Juice, would you please kick us off? How do you feel out of 5?
Yeah, this one, I agree with you guys about the idea of it being a great movie to put in the background. Because again, I'm going to reiterate, I think that the visual style of this is what stands out. And if it's on mute or if it's on low and people aren't really paying attention, then that really helps it, because those are the things you kind of glimpse over and see and sets a mood for a space. And that's great. When you have to watch this movie alone and you have to pay attention to it, I don't think that those visual styles are enough to carry me. Some of these characters are somewhat entertaining and interesting, but for the most part, I found this to be quite a slog to get through. And I had to stop it a couple of times, and each time I was going back to it, I kind of dreaded it more and more. And I feel like the last 15 minutes were rough, and like within the first 40 minutes there were about 15 to 20 minutes I found kind of rough. There was like some entertainment though. Once things start popping off, there's some interesting moments, but then it kind of hits this kind of thing where they're just running around again, and I don't know. It wasn't captivating me. I found some of it interesting and intriguing. Just go through my notes real quick. Amazing intro again. People freak the fuck out when she breaks that mirror. When that mirror gets broken, they freak. I thought that show was pretty funny. The acting is too over the top and obnoxious. Stooge's hair is nuts in the butts. His fucking hair is cracking me up. And even his little costume, his pig nose, that show's funny too. Sometimes the music is fun. Sometimes it's really terrible. Too much talking 40 minutes in and almost nothing has happened. They're just talking about random lore. The dance scene was really cool. The aesthetic was really cool. The line, "I've never made it in a coffin." No shit. You're like 17 years old. So like, I've never made it in a coffin. Damn. And then I don't think that's how gas works. Overall, I respect what this movie does. And I think I agree that it would be great to throw on at a Halloween party or, a Halloween even just get together, and to have on in the background. As a film by itself, I think it falls short in a lot of areas. Overall, I'm going to give it a 2. And something we didn't talk about is the Yabos. Woo! I mean, we kind of talked about it, but, there's some Yabos in here. So that's going to, and like some full frontal, I believe, in this one. Yeah.
Unless it was trickery, which it could have been. I don't know. Yeah.
So that is going to get a half star from Shaboy. I'm a man with the code. I'm honor bound to give the half star. So 2.5 from Shaboy. Bob, out of 5, what are you going to give Night of the Demons? You pushed hard for this a couple years ago. Just not getting around to it.
Yeah. Don't trick Randy when it comes to full frontal. Like, let's be clear. Do not trick him, okay?
I'm here for the real deal.
I don't want that fucking full frontal trickery, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this has been on at least 2 poll picks, I think. It's definitely a movie that I'm fond of. I'm happy we're finally getting around to talking about it. It's not like a home run of a movie. It's not one that you can throw on like Juice sort of like just said, and like watch alone and just like be completely enraptured by like the characters and the dialogue and like the writing and all this shit. It's very much like a mood piece for me. It's about the vibe. It's a party movie. I get a kick out of the costumes and like the set dressing, the goofy ass lines like "bodacious boobies, sis," and like "maybe I'm in the mood for pork tonight," and "eat a bowl of fuck." Like these are the characters that are in this movie. Talking about banging in a coffin. The dance sequence is really fucking cool. There's like some pretty solid effects too. I wish they were a little more consistent and like maybe a little more varied. But the razor blades popping out of the neck at the end, the weird like lipstick nipple sequence, the burning hands. There's like an eye gouging sequence. There's somebody gets an arm cut off and the arm like comes back to life and like starts grabbing around. There's like some really great stuff. Also, like we mentioned, the mirror shot where like the mirror shatters and like we see all the characters in the shards of broken glass is like really, really, really fucking cool. I love that shot. The overall story does sort of like crawl through the third act. It doesn't end with a bang. I feel like it starts with a bang, but it doesn't quite end with a bang. There's not much of a plot, and this is not really inventing the wheel in any way. It's definitely got some light, like Evil Dead vibes to it. But overall, it's like a fun ass ride. It's a great watch with your friends during Halloween, and that's really what I'm here for when it comes to this movie. I am going to give this a 3.5. I'm a big fan of it. Randy, how do you feel out of 5?
Well, I'm not terribly far off from where you're standing, Bob. And I think that has something to do with the fact that we have a shared history of watching this when we were living together.
Yeah,
together.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and we clearly had a good time at Left the Last. Like we had some good times watching this movie. And like, so we kind of are on the same level in that regard. I think, this is the kind of camp that I can get behind where, I wouldn't stand by, like, I'm not super big on campy movies that are intentionally campy and trying to like wink and nod at the audience so much. It's kind of rare for me to like a movie that's like that, that's knows what it's doing, in terms of how campy it is. But this one works for me, and I think it's because it does make jokes that are like kind of funny, but they're not too clever. They're almost as stupid as the movie itself. You know what I mean? They're not trying too hard with the humor. They're allowing, campy humor to exist in a campy movie. And I think that worked for me. I agree with Justin that there's a stark difference between watching this on your own and watching this with a crowd that's vibing on it too. I watched this with Becky and she was only like half paying attention. So I more or less had that experience. And, it's very different than watching it with your buddies. And some movies are just built like that. I would argue that this movie was made with that in mind, or not doing that in mind, I guess, just sitting with your friends and watching it that way. And so I think it succeeds on that level. And, I don't think that it succeeds on a narrative level really at all. It does a few things that they could have built on, but it's not even important that they did so because it's so silly and ridiculous. Not to like go backwards on it,
the backwards man.
I think that like the difference between this,
I can walk backwards fast as you.
This and Malignant for me, like for example, last week we were talking about that again, is just that this movie knows what it is and it's upfront about it right away. So if you're gonna like be kind of clever about it and at all, I don't think the wisest move, at least for me, is to conceal it. And also, this is just on an aesthetic level. It's just building off a camp that I particularly am drawn to, whereas I'm not drawn to underworld camp. I'm not really interested in that shit. So to play on fucking underworld movies and that sort of shit does nothing for me. Less than nothing. So
you are less than nothing to me, underworld.
It's called Underworld for a reason.
I can't believe we haven't covered Underworld yet.
We did one.
Yeah.
It was Fart in the Pants of America, as I recall.
Blood
farts.
Anyway, but yeah. So like, I just wanted to point that out. It's like, I'm not adverse to camp in general. I like this movie, and this movie I think kind of nails a tone, which is what we were lacking in Malignant. So I like this movie. I think that it's perfect for Halloween. It's perfect for Halloween parties in particular. And, it has that, chintzy 80s hair metal aesthetic that I can get down on for the season. You know what I mean? I can enjoy that quite a bit. So for me, it's a 3. I feel favorably enough about it to overlook some of its what would otherwise be pretty glaring flaws and give it probably like a full point bump based on what its aesthetic accomplishments are and what its potential enjoyment is in the right setting.
All right. That's going to be a 3 overall. Let's go ahead and get into our next segment.
Whoa, you're stepping on my lines, guy. Just because you go back to Korea, you think you can just do whatever you want to do. With Randu's 3 out of 5, that's going to put our aggregate at a 3 even. Let's go ahead and check out our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Night of the Demons.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, folks, this is our Rotten Tomatoes segment. If you knew, this is a segment where I'm going to have these gentlemen guess within the best of their abilities what they think the aggregate scores are percentage-wise on RottenTomatoes.com, both critics and users. We're going to start with the critics, and there is a complete deficiency of reviews for this movie in the critics section. There's only 11, so it's not certified anything, no matter what. So why don't we start with Bob today? What do you think the critics, on average, out of 11, have to say about this movie? Kind of a high wire act this week.
Yeah, that's super low. I don't think they're going to be overly favorable to this movie. I'm going to go... Just give me right down the middle with a 50%, please.
50 percentile. Soju, how you feeling about it?
If it's 11%...
No, it's 11 reviews.
I mean, okay, 11 reviews. Sorry, that's what I meant. I was trying to figure out what the percentage would be then. So, I don't know. I'll go a scotch higher than Bob.
Okay.
If these people are going to review it, maybe they'll go on the favorable side. So, but I don't want to go too. I'll say like 53.
It's very close.
Oh, shit.
Like,
well, I was trying to figure out the percentage.
No. You're not close at all to the number.
Oh.
But it's just like you could have just $1 at that point. It's just back. No. So yeah, Bob's going to take this, but it's not particularly close. 36%. 36 percentile. It's a negative. Oh
no.
Yeah. So do we want to? We can jump right into the audience score. I think is probably fair. There's no critics consensus that I see on here. So like at that level, there's usually not. So 10,000 plus audience ratings. So significantly higher portion. Sample size here. We'll start with Soju this time. Where are you finding the audience in this movie?
Ooh, I think it'll be higher than the critics. I think, there's going to be some solid support for this movie, but I can't go too high on it. I still think it's going to be somewhat of a lukewarm. So I'm still going to go slightly higher, though, and say like a 56.
56. Bob, where are you at with it?
I mean, this movie definitely has a cult following. I'm going to go a little higher with a 60. Give me a 60, please.
All right. Again, you guys, for some reason, are going like 2 or 3 notches away from each other. Soju, you're going to be much closer on this one. You are 1 percentile off, 55%.
Oh, almost that ding-a-ling, but that's still a hell yeet.
Oh, yeah, it's not for the movie, though. Kind of got shafted, in my opinion.
I was denied my hell skeet, by the way.
You didn't even request it, Bob. How am I going to give it to you if you can't even request it?
Man.
Oh, my God.
I love being incontinent.
Yeah.
I earned that hell skeet. Fuck.
Oh.
Fine. Randu, do you want to read a review?
Yeah, let's read a negative review. Sometimes they're fun.
Wait, was there no overall?
No, because there's only 11 critics reviews.
Okay,
I think they only really start at like if you get over like 150 or something.
I gotcha.
Okay, here's one. I'd be remiss if I didn't note that this is one of the most misogynistic films I've ever seen, even within a genre that gets maligned for its portrayal of women. I don't know if that's entirely unfair. I will say, I think you'd have to work pretty hard to be offended by this movie.
Yeah,
pretty hard to be offended.
It's too silly to be offended by, in my opinion.
The female characters are very much sexualized. Like you can't.
Yeah,
they are. But all the dudes are made to be like complete pieces of shit. Like they're kind of irredeemable.
True. Yeah.
Like you've got like nobody in this movie is a sterling example of their gender. I wouldn't say, except for maybe Judy, actually, because she's kind of her own person. Out of everybody else, she's the one who stands up for herself and is her own person. I guess the two people who
survive, are
and Raj, to some extent, I don't know.
It's a morality tale. Don't be shitty, okay? Like that's.
I'm sure there's a good argument for that somewhere. I haven't. Maybe to my shame, I haven't thought it all the way through. But to my mind, it's like, this is almost too stupid to qualify.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Call in and tell me how wrong I am, please.
Well, it's weird too that, I mean, this is just horror in general, especially of this time, but it's so closely tied to with like sexuality means punishment, or like that those two things are so completely entwined.
Yeah.
It's because even the couple who has like very consensual, like, oh, we're going to go bang it out, they're like together, it's still just completely shrouded in sexualization means murder and punishment.
Yeah, it definitely leans into that aspect. And if that's the case, like, I mean, that's something, if you consider that misogynistic, then certainly you can make that claim about a lot of horror movies of the era. So that's not a specific qualm with this movie.
They do jizz in a coffin though. So, I mean, maybe not.
Who does
maybe
that?
not.
I think they both do, though, in fairness.
No kink shaming.
Yeah.
Think it's time to bring back that hotline kink.
Hotline kink. Dude, if you have fucked in a coffin, let us know.
I
have a daddy kink. If you got a coffin
kink. Rob,
we know.
Jesus.
They call me coffin
Just mention...
daddy.
That's
are
a
you
new clip right there.
Yeah, dude. Crypt Keeper just got reincarnated into Bob. They call me Coffin Daddy. I can't say that shit.
I've got a bone to pick with you.
Sex style. Yeah. So there we go.
Yeah. Totally time for trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
Ooh, it's tough to be followed by that. by that particular impression.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trivia about Linnea Quigley. Surprise, surprise. With this first one starting off, Linnea Quigley and special effects artist Steve Johnson met when she came in to get the mold of her fake Yabos done. They were later married. Hey, there you go.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's a natural pathway, really.
Produced for a modest $1.2 million, the film racked up outrageously large grosses in its limited release. Debuting in Detroit, it hit New York City at Thanksgiving and earned $3.1 million, holding screens until the end of the year. Had the film opened nationwide with the numbers it earned in Detroit, it was projected to have earned $13 million domestically in its opening weekend, which would have ranked it amongst the top grossing horror films of its decade. So, wow.
It's so weird that they released it on Thanksgiving weekend.
Well, in New York. So it debuted in Detroit, and maybe because of its success there, it finally made its way to New York by Thanksgiving. That's the only thing I can assume.
A slow rollout.
That's such a missed opportunity that I guess they might not have even been able to predict. But
yeah, this is a fun little Linnea Quigley moment. During an interview, Linnea Quigley was asked if she had ever been in an audience of fans and just watched their reaction to one of her films. She replied, I have, and it's really fun. Actually, when I first saw Night of the Demons, I went to see it at a drive-in, and it was a really great experience, except I forgot that the first scene I filmed was my bare butt bending over, and it was up on the screen really big, and it was, and I was like, oh God, no, and I was pretty embarrassed.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, at least you're at a drive-in, though. I mean, nobody's going to even notice you at a drive-in or a drive-thru.
And by the way, I want to point out that the reason I was suspect of her full frontal being in this movie is because I know that in Return of the Living Dead, they gave her a falsie on that.
That's I remember you saying that. I have not.
I wondered if that's still held over for her.
I don't know. I don't see anything about a prosthetic.
Maybe she
frontal.
Decided to go for it this time around.
Yeah.
Was this before or after? Actually, I don't know which came first.
This was 88. This is 88. I think this was after. I think Return was 85.
I think so too.
I'll Google it.
Yeah, 85 it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe she just decided to go for it. I don't know.
Yeah. When we first see Angela, she is wearing cross earring. I wonder if she was maybe older. That's a 3-year difference.
Maybe. I mean, well, she certainly was older.
Fact.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I don't know how much that factored in.
I just meant like
maybe.
from a legal standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, well, she showed her yabos in the first and Return of the Living Dead for sure. So if they were infringing there, then they really fucking infringed.
It wasn't an underage thing. That was not the point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when we first see Angela, she is wearing cross earrings. Later in the movie, when she is dancing with Stooge, her cross earrings are upside down, which is a popular sign of the devil. So that's a nice little touch.
I didn't notice that. Touch.
Linnea Quigley had to come in and practice eye gouging. Damn, how do you practice that shit?
Oh, man. How do you get that right?
Give me them eyes.
Do you guys know who Frank Welker is?
The name's ringing a bell, but I can't place it.
No.
It says that he is uncredited for this film, but he provides the voice for Angela when she is possessed.
Oh, he's fucking Scooby-Doo.
Is he?
I'm pretty sure.
That's awesome.
Voice actor, Frank Welker, voice actor. Let's see. Yeah. He does creature effects for Scooby. No, yeah, he does Scooby-Doo. He does it in Looney Tunes Back in Action. He did it in Scoob. He did it in the film series. Yeah, he's Scooby.
Yeah, they got Scooby-Doo for this one.
And Fred.
Nice.
According to actress Linnea Quigley, the house used in the film had very little dressing done to it, as it was in pretty bad shape at the time. Many of the items, furniture, and decor was authentic to the original building. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
It really looked like complete shit.
Well done.
Nice. Nice.
It's just a good find.
Yeah, I think that'll wrap up trivia.
That'll do. Well, then, it is time to go hunting. We're talking Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the Week.
Juice, what is a Cooter and why are we hunting them?
A Cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter, and we want the Cooter with the most points. The 5 points are smug arrogance, sexual deviance, manipulation, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness, boys. Ooh, man, we might have our hands full this week.
It's a hotly contested week, I think.
Yeah, who can we say is the top Cooter? There's plenty of Cooters in this film.
Man, 4 that I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
The ones off the top of my head are like Stooge, Jay, Linnea Quigley's character,
Little Brother.
Damn,
Sal.
Yeah.
I'd think Sal.
I would say Sal, at least at the beginning of the film.
Ooh,
sure,
at least
certainly.
4 or 5. Damn.
That's like 5 people.
Half
I don't think
does.
Yeah, let's just kind of. Could you say Angela? I don't know so much about Angela. She's just kind of gothy.
Maybe she'd hit a couple.
Maybe a couple.
I think we got our hands full enough. I don't think she strikes me hard enough.
Yeah, who do you guys think could take the top spot though?
Jay.
Yeah. is my first spot. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, we're gonna hit Jay for sexual deviance for sure.
Yeah, manipulation,
and
those are closely tied in his case.
Yeah, for sure.
Smug arrogance also closely tied
as fuck.
That's true. Arrogant, yeah.
Look and attire, it's pretty basic. White football star.
He did. However, can we give him a tire for not wearing a costume to a Halloween party?
Yeah,
specifically, it was a choice.
Fuck that dude.
I'll go for that. And call it out. I'll go with that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's necessarily cootery, but it's enough to make me dislike him.
I think it is because
which is the whole point.
It kind of ties into the arrogance of he's so smug about himself that he's not going to wear a Halloween costume
But he's going to go to a Halloween party just because he thinks it's going to scare what he imagines as an easy girl.
He's
fucking him on a goddamn corpse table.
So you still got to look good. Still got to, get the collar popping.
And patheticness, I think it all is pretty pathetic.
Since Jay can remember, he's been popping that collar.
Ooh, no.
Pathetic. Yeah, he gets.
I'd be stroking.
Gets his eyes gouged out real good.
Honestly, I think he hits at least low rumblings in patheticness and looking attire. So that's a fiver. That's a fiver right there.
Yeah, he's pretty strong, man. The 80s, they knew what they were doing with the cooters.
They knew how to handle a cooter in the 80s.
Well, since we covered him real quick, should we cover maybe a female cooter? Maybe Linnea Quigley's character?
Let's talk about Linnea.
What was her name?
Suzanne is the character.
So sexual deviance, I would say flashing her rump to be able to steal some shit. That might fall into manipulation and
that's manipulation.
Deviance. I mean,
she manipulates everybody. She manipulates Jay to basically go for her instead of Judy.
She is possessed at that point, though.
That's true. I feel like that's within her.
But she's not acting that different.
Yeah, that was the thing. Is they didn't make her different enough.
Her whole character is built around vanity. She's a very vain individual. She's always looking in a mirror, always putting on makeup. So I mean that is sort of pathetic. Yeah. I think that would rank for sure.
I want to point out that her she got Jay to dance with her the first time they were dancing. That's before any seancing happens. That's before anything happens. So yeah, she's trying to steal men. She just wants to get fucking boned. This girl wants to get plowed.
Jay just wants to plow. So,
Yeah, and Jay seriously wants to plow.
Right there.
Yeah. And then eventually she just wants to murder, and she gets her chance with old pork pie himself, fucking stooge.
Yeah.
So looking attire. I mean, she's in a costume, so it's kind of tough when she's actually. Jay might have the strongest claim to attire because he's not in a costume.
Yeah,
but
she gets the makeup. I would say the makeup.
The makeup kind of
add to the look and attire. I guess
she's pretty arrogant,
pretty high up there.
Her stuff. Yeah, I think she hits pretty high too. I think we could talk about Stooge as well, but I think that's. I don't think he's gonna. I think that Stooge just kind of gets a rung down a little bit compared to these other two because he's at least pretty fucking upfront about what he's doing.
Yeah, I would say if anyone hits in the third spot, I would probably guess Sal.
I
feel
because he's got the arrogance and sexual deviance. Yeah, I mean, and
he eventually has a triumphant moment too. I don't know. I think that it's too easy. It's too easy to just clearly we've got a homecoming king and queen of the cooterdom this week. And it's Linnea Quigley and Jay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can we book them?
Let's book them, boys.
I think we got them. We got them.
We're going to get arrested.
Gentlemen, we've done a wonderful job hunting some cooters this week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We got to treat ourselves, though. We got to relax. We got to kick our feet up. We got to let our hair down. We got to talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randu, what you been slamming into the eyeballs?
Oof. Okay, so I did a not terribly closely paying attention rewatch of Chernobyl while working this week. It's kind of a show that you can only really successfully do that if you've seen it, because it's so dense. but just kind of having it on while I'm working was fine this particular time around. That show is so fucking good. I don't need to say that for the 30th time on this podcast, but it's great. Watched Superhost, the Shudder exclusive, this week. Rob, you mentioned that last week, and it intrigued me because I very much lived on the Airbnb train for several years, moving from place to place. And I don't think I really had a bad experience with Airbnb, like specifically with any of the hosts. As much as, there's that whole company is fraught with problems. But as far as the hosts and stuff, I never had a problem. But I always worried about somebody being a little too zealous or a little too crazy. And so this movie particularly played into that a little bit. So there was that. I watched a movie called Mockingbird Don't Sing. Becky suggested we watch this. So naturally, it is one of the saddest fucking movies you'll ever see. It's a true story. It's a true story about a girl who was strapped to a chair and abused until she was 13 years old, and then eventually, quote unquote, rescued, and then shuffled around horribly for years as researchers tried to teach her how to, function as a person after she had reached what they call the critical moment where absorption of like language and stuff just kind of stops. It was extremely heartrending and sad.
Becky sure has a flavor, doesn't she?
She does. Yeah. She's not pretentious about those. She'll be like, I want to watch a sad movie. I'm like, tough day. Yep. Let's watch a sad movie. Okay. All right. We're doing it. And so we did. And man, it's not like as far as a movie, it's not the best movie in the world. It's pretty one-sided. It's kind of tough to not see it as a movie written by and for one particular character who's portrayed in the movie as the hero. But it seems to, from what I've read, comport pretty closely to life. So it's not bad. And it's also just kind of dated, really. Also watched a documentary called Lula Rich, which is about the pyramid scheme of LuLaRoe, which I was not really very familiar with. I got confused with Lululemon very frequently. But it's a pyramid scheme centered around leggings. Yeah, they both are. That's why it's so confusing. So it's a pyramid scheme built around leggings. You buy a bunch of leggings and then you get people to sell your leggings for you. And if you can't do that, then you just eat the money that you've spent on it. And it's interviews a bunch of people whose lives were ruined, and the people who own and still run the company were interviewed. And boy, there are some Cooter power couples in this world, and they are one of them. Holy shit. Hate them. That's my feelings on Lula Rich. Sweet. And then last but not least, for those who are into what's called analog horror, which is kind of like a trend on YouTube that stems from like the ARG games of the past and things like that. There's a show or like a web series called, what is it? Local 52, I believe, is the original one that kind of did this, where it's like supposedly lost recordings of newscasts in the whatever 90s or whatever. I haven't watched too much of that, but it's kind of like the progenitor. And then this series that I watched is called Gemini Home Entertainment, which is specifically VHS instructional tapes, educational tapes that were lost at time that have a creepypasta-esque thing going on about them. And a little bit of an ongoing story. And yeah, I'm pretty engaged with that sort of thing. It's very much like almost like a found footagey thing, but with no characters. There's not really you are the character, more or less. It's like you put yourself in kayfabe and you just kind of like, what if I saw this in real life? It's like that thing where there was, this is a true thing. There's a video that was made to play in the case of mutually assured destruction during the 80s, that was meant to be played on news stations. That was more or less like, thanks for tuning into life. Please stay calm as life ends. It's not, they don't say that, but it's like this incredibly gruesome thing. And I think they accidentally aired it once. I hope to God that this is actually not a real thing. And I'm just like pushing forward an urban legend, but you can watch it on the web and it's on YouTube. And if it is indeed real, this is kind of thing that it's emulating, is like this, like sort of creepy, like existential dread sort of feeling that goes on in these things where they're just not saying quite enough for you to understand what they're getting at. I'm interested in it. And I think the idea of analog horror, which is basically what that I just described is. I think it's pretty interesting, and hopefully it continues to reinvent itself and get some legs as it goes. I'm interested in that shit. That's it for me.
You always know a bunch of like wild YouTube shit that I've never heard of before. Like you always
actually like. There's a few fucking people, I can't remember who it is now, but there's at least one person on the Slack channel that has brought up Local 52 several times and is desperate for people to watch and talk about it with him or her. And so, let's get on that. I'm going to try and do that.
Sorry, we've failed to do that, obviously.
That's so funny.
The thing is, they're like 5-minute clips that come out every like month or something. So it's not like a big time commitment. It's like an hour's worth of material.
I just don't watch any YouTube like that. Like a series, or I just don't watch. And it's interesting because I'm like, why don't I? I feel like I would be into it. I just don't watch any kind of YouTube as a show or as a continuous series. So that's,
it's still a relatively new thing to do to people. It's not something you think to do. But and the other thing is it's kind of inconsistent. Like these two series that I mentioned are heralded as the best right now, as far as I've seen. And then there's like dozens of others that have kind of done a similar or shoddier job, maybe.
Okay. Sweet deal. Juice, what you been watching?
To wash the grimy taste of Night of the Demons out of my eyeballs, I watched some of my favorite annual Halloween flicks. Sleepy Hollow has over the past several years become one of my go-tos. It's just a kind of fun visual feast for Halloween. There's so many jack-o'-lanterns. Tim Burton style really works with this season, and everything's very bland, black and white, except for these, vibrant jack-o'-lanterns that are everywhere. At one point, they're throwing a flaming jack-o'-lantern through. It's a lot of visual fun. It's got a great cast. Christopher Lee is in there. Johnny Depp does a good job with this one. It's just great. I really enjoyed that one. Again, I've a year for at least the past 3 or 4 years on Halloween, and it fits perfectly. And also Casper, since it lost to this film, I went ahead and watched Casper. It's great. I will say 1995. I think the animation to have 4 main characters in a film in 1995 that are completely animated, I still think it looks good today. Like, I think it holds up because I think it's kid driven. I think that was the right choice, and they kind of lean into that with the overall look and designs. And I think it still looks good. I love that movie. That movie is so much fun.
You would.
It's got great fall vibes as well. A cool Halloween party at the end. That house just has such cool vibe, Whipstaff Manor. Or whatever.
It's got a death curse.
Yeah, it's a really fun watch for Halloween. So I watched that again. Been watching a ton of Brooklyn Nine-Nine while I'm in quarantine. Good Lord. Day 11, almost done. And I've been playing some games too for spooky season. I was planning on streaming. I brought my little retro Pi, but unfortunately I brought the wrong power adapter. It usually plugs in, and I didn't bring that one, but I have a USB attachment that technically works because it fits into the slot, but it pulls the power down. It's not designed to be plugged into USB. And for some reason, the only thing it fucks up on is the sound. It just everything functions normally, but the sound just gets so fucked up. And I was like, well, can't stream it with this garbage sound. So unfortunately, that's what happened. But I have still been playing Super Castlevania 4, I think it is, the big one for Super Nintendo, and some Super Metroid as well, which both have some solid spooky vibes, completely different spooky vibes. Metroid's definitely more got an alien feel, but they're both a lot of fun, and I've never beat Super Castlevania before, so I'm kind of trying to do that this season, but it's fun. I understand why it's considered a classic or whatever. It's a good game, but that's about all I've been watching and doing. Bob, wrap us up. What you been watching, my guy?
I checked out the newest Nick Cage joint. This is the third.
How
Nick
many
Cage,
movies? Yeah,
dude, that man.
The third Nick Cage movie I've seen this year. So he's working. He's working his ass off.
Only Steven Seagal has more fucking movies than this guy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think he's legit done like 150 movies. Like he's around there. He's done a lot of shit.
I mean, I know that the popular, like, I don't know how true this is, but the popular thing is that he like needed the money because of tax problems or something. I don't know how true that is, but
the movie I'm talking about is called Prisoners of the Ghostland. So this is not really a horror movie. It's kind of an odd genre mashup. It's definitely got some like Western vibes. It's got some heavy samurai vibes. It's set in like the post-apocalypse. Nick Cage's character is like a bank robber, and he's robbing a bank. His partner ends up murdering a whole bunch of people. Nick Cage gets arrested, and the mayor of the town, who's played by Bill Moseley, who kills it. He's my favorite part of the movie. He's got a bunch of like quote daughters. They're not really his daughters, but one of them runs off. She escapes, and he decides to let Nick Cage out of prison to go like round up his daughter and bring her back home, and he's got 5 days to do it, and if he's unable to do it within 5 days, this suit that they strap him into has got like bombs built into it, and it'll just fucking blow him into pieces. It's got like a little bomb on each one of his arms, on each one of his testicles, and then 2 on his throat.
2 on his testicles?
On his testicle. One per
ball,
testicle. Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
Of course.
It's such a controlled explosion that one would not handle the testicles.
I mean, maybe one blows up and maybe you see what happens. I don't know. You'll have to watch the movie.
What's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
If that does not explode, that movie has failed.
True. That's true. It's got some like really amazing visuals. It is very like visually inconsistent though. It's got like so many different tones I feel like it's going for, and they don't always work well together. It's like also very like hammy. So if anytime there's some sort of like tension building or drama building, like it doesn't land because everybody's acting in such an elevated manner, which sometimes is very comedic and that pays off, but overall it just like feels like the movie has no real point and doesn't land. It just doesn't stick the landing. It feels like very scattershot in almost every way. It's just like kind of all over the place. But it's entertaining, you know. It
seems not like that's going
movie.
Around.
Yeah, it's way too much going on. I didn't love it. You know, if it shows up on VOD, maybe throw it on. But I wouldn't necessarily like go out of my way to watch it. Like if it's playing in a theater, I don't know. I didn't love it. It's no Pig. It's the polar opposite of Pig.
You don't say.
Yeah. What else have I been watching? I checked out this movie called The Last Matinee. So this is on VOD. I rented it for, I think, $5 off Amazon. This is in Argentinian film, so it's Spanish language. Basically, what the movie is set in 1993. It is about just this little like mom and pop theater, and they're showing this horror movie. It's the last showing of the evening. There's a few people in the theater watching this movie, and there's a slasher. This dude, he's like a psychopath serial killer, rolls up into the theater and just starts taking them out one by one. It's kind of slow to start. It's introducing you to the people that work at the theater as well as to the people that are in the theater watching the movie. But once it gets going, it really gets going, and I definitely think the juice is worth the squeeze on this one.
Wow.
It's a tight 90 minutes. If you want sort of like a meat and potatoes slasher that's set in sort of an interesting environment, like a movie theater. You don't really see slashers happening in movie theaters.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun ride, and I would definitely recommend it. I had a good time with it. It's not doing anything too new, but if you just want like just a straight up slasher, I think you'll dig The Last Matinee. So you can rent that pretty much anywhere you rent movies. It's like $5, so check it out. Also, I went to Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando, Florida.
What was your favorite house that you went through?
Tell me.
Man, the lines are notorious, and we didn't do the fast passes, so we went on a couple rides and managed to hit a couple houses. Yeah, we did fuck up.
Rides on Halloween Horror Night, Bob?
Yeah.
What are you doing, noob?
I feel like we always hit at least one ride. I don't know. We rode Men in Black and The Mummy, and dude, The Mummy, like I've been having some like
that's a great fucking ride.
It's a great ride. I've been having some like slight back issues, and like when The Mummy took off, it like popped my back and like might have actually helped me out a little bit. So
there you go.
Yeah. When it happened,
Congrats,
I was like, that either helped or it made things a lot worse. I'll find out when I wake up in the morning. And I felt fine, so I don't know. Getting old is weird. We hit up the Haunting.
I don't look forward to it.
Oh yeah.
Take Bob's medical advice and ride this roller coaster.
We hit up the Haunting of Hill House, which was super spooky. They did a really good job. There's like, it's hard to talk about because I'll spoil the show. They did a good job. Worth checking out. I will say Beetlejuice was the other house we went on. Everybody knows Beetlejuice. I'm not spoiling anything here. The set design was fucking phenomenal. They had like a giant sandworm that would like lunge down at you.
Nice.
The Dante's Inferno, is that what it's called? That's like the strip club, I think. They had like a giant like facade of the strip club that you walk into that was really, really cool. They had, an actor taunting you, dressed up as Beetlejuice, and he's like making these lewd comments as you're walking into the house. It was pretty funny. And they also had like the dinner table scene was like you walk into the dining room, but the room is completely flipped upside down. So the dining room table is above you, and they've got like the little shrimp finger hands that would like reach down on either side of you.
That's cool.
It was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they did a really nice job with fucking Beetlejuice, man. It was pretty baller. Overall, they if you're worried about like COVID and shit, which obviously you probably are, they had a lot of scare actors in the houses behind plexiglass. So either like if you're in the house, you're either wearing like a prosthetic mask that's covering your mouth and nose, or you're behind plexiglass, so you're not like breathing in each other's spaces. They don't necessarily like enforce masks. They strongly encourage them, but like people do what people want to do. So consider that if you're wanting to go. And also like the scare zones, they kind of have the scare actors elevated. They're on stages and they're also wearing masks. They're kind of far away from you. So like they're kind of taking care of their staff, but like people in attendance, like they're kind of just doing whatever they want to do. So keep that in mind if you want to go.
That's fucking theme parks, man.
Yeah, they did a good job with the houses, though. It's their 30th year, and
are they controlling like how many people go in at a time?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I didn't read that on their website.
Likely a no, then.
So, yeah, I'm not sure about that. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been watching. We got one more segment to get into, and that is, of course, our Hotline Screams.
Hotline Scream.
If you're listening and would like to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got 2 voicemails and an email. First up, we're going to hear from Jack. Let's hear what Jack has to say.
My boys, Jack, I had a great weekend. I'm in a great mood, and you guys did not enjoy Malignant one bit, man. Tough go at it for old Juan. I had a great weekend. I went to the goddamn drive-ins with my girlfriend and some of my buddies, and we all sat and we had the popcorn. I was with my girlfriend in the back of my truck, my goddamn truck, and we sat there with pillows and shit, and we got popcorn. We sat down to watch Malignant. I had no idea what that movie was about going into it. All I knew it was called Malignant, and it was made by Juan Herrera. And sit there. I was like Bob. The second that doctor lady was like, we're going to cut out the cancer. I'm like, this movie's ridiculous. This is fucking silly. And I sat there and had such a good time watching this stupid thing. For me, I totally get what Juan was saying when he said he sort of made it for horror fans. Like, this movie was like, at first it was sort of like a haunted house, like ghosty movie. Then it turned into like a slasher movie with that big Ooga Booga guy that was like stabbing dudes in their bed, just murking motherfuckers. And then it turned into a full-ass John Wickian monster movie when that thing's fucking head split open, I would just kept turning to my girlfriend and going like, it's the brain thing. The brain thing is going to reverse your body and fuck up the entire Seattle Police Department. It was brutal, and I loved it. I thought it was so freaking dumb and just amazing. Ugh. And without that, one thing you guys didn't mention is I totally got this when it was happening. I don't know if this was just incredibly obvious, but I thought I was pretty clever. James Wan was alluding to the thing there, where the little prison sequence where the girl, spoilers, her head splits open and the thing pops out. That was the kennel scene from John Carpenter's The Thing, just from like the point of view of the Thing. Where, I think at one point one of the girls goes like, what are we, dogs or something? And I was like, oh, I see what you're doing here. A lot of little references and, I don't know what the hell you call that, fodder, whatever the hell it is. When you appeal to fan bases, I could see what Juan was going for, and I had a good time. I do not need a sequel to that goddamn movie. I don't think I'm ever going to watch it again, but I had a hell of a good time, and I was kind of disappointed to see that no one else was like having as much fun as I have. It's like I definitely had the most fun at the water park, and I think Soju's like whole like vibe was ruined. That dude sounded like he was in pain. So I'm sorry for that. But I don't know, I liked it. So if anyone was listening to that podcast and was like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't go see it, like if you go in there with just the idea that that's going to be freaking dumb, I had a great time. I shut my brain off. It was great. Hopefully the next one's good, guys. I'll let you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I did not consider the John Carpenter The Thing nod at all. That's an astute.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess.
Yeah,
I've ruminated at length about this so much on our Slack channel.
Dude, that Slack channel was popping.
Yeah, well, people had strong opinions about this, like across the world or across the horror fan base, certainly. And, to me, it's just like, I think that at its core, maybe the biggest problem that I didn't really recognize last week is that it's parodying things, or it's not even parodying, it's homaging certain subgenres of horror, like the underworld films and shit like that, 2000s horror, which I am not particularly fond of to begin with, and I don't find particularly engaging to revisit. So I think that's part of it. It's really kind of like, I don't know, between that and like the giallo stuff, which I've also gone on record as saying I'm not particularly big on. I just don't think it was really catered to me, even as a horror fan, because I'm not super into the genres it was playing with. So I don't know. I don't want to take anything away from people who enjoyed it. It sounds like you had an ideal experience with this movie, so good for you, man.
Yeah,
I hope that a lot more people feel that way, so that we can get more weird fucking movies like this, and maybe I'll like a few of them.
Yeah, I don't mind people liking it as long as they're not pretentious assholes about it.
Yeah,
true.
Which is a door that swings both ways, and I struggled with.
Yeah, I think this would be a perfect movie to watch at the drive-in. Honestly, like something you can sort of like
sounds like a good time.
Engaging with a crowd potentially sitting outside in the back of your truck. That seems like a pretty.
So long as it's
setting.
lit well.
Well, yeah,
I've experienced some darker horror movies at drive-ins that are almost impossible to even make out. So
yeah, well,
it's a pretty dark movie.
You got to be able to see it. Yeah, that's why Jack liked it so much. He couldn't fucking see anything. He was like, "Oh, this is fucking great." Yeah,
concealed some of the CG, maybe.
Maybe so. Yeah. Hey, thanks for calling, Jack. Glad to hear from you. Next up, we're gonna hear from Miles. Let's hear what Miles has to say.
What's going on, guys? It's Miles here. You would think after this past week, if you were on the Slack, you'd think I was calling in to talk about Malignant. But surprisingly, I'm not. I'm actually calling about the prompt from the other week. I think it was, what's the most disturbing movie you've ever seen? For me, the most disturbing movie I've ever seen is Short Circuit 2. So if you haven't seen the Short Circuit movies, they're from the 80s. They're kids movies. Johnny Five, he's a robot. He gains sentience, and he's alive. He goes on adventures and shit. The second one, it's been years since I've seen it. I believe he gets tricked by some robbers into assisting them with a burglary, and to silence him, they decide to destroy him. So in this children's movie, there are these two thugs, and they are essentially murdering this robot. And the thing that disturbed me was he is begging for his life while they are beating this robot's ass. They are fucking this robot up, chopping his arms off and stuff. And he is begging them not to kill him, and that bothered me. That bothered me a lot. And that actually carried on to adulthood. I have a really hard time in movies where people are being violent or just cruel in general to people who one, don't deserve it, especially like children or animals, and two, are actively begging for their lives. I can usually detach myself from on-screen violence as, not real. But anybody's begging for their life and crying, and it gets a little too real for me. I know people don't like the Rob Zombie Halloweens, but there's some brutal kills in those fucking movies. Like where people are crying and begging. That scene where he kills Danny Trejo. Can't do it. Makes me too sad. That's Short Circuit 2. Very disturbing. I know I'm not the only one. I've heard other people say that fucked them up as kids. Don't know if you guys have seen it, but I guess. Take care.
Johnny Five alive. I have not seen.
I don't know why the idea
2.
with the robot. It actually sounds like I don't like that either. People begging, but for some reason
it's great.
I wasn't expecting the idea of a robot being taken apart piece by piece, and so you're just comment on it, correct? That it was a robot.
I wonder how Miles reacted to that hitchhiking robot that was murdered in Detroit. Did you guys hear about that?
No.
Somebody designed a robot the idea was, this robot will hitchhike and it'll be a great community effort to get this robot across the country. No. And it died in 3 days because somebody beat the fuck out of it to death. I believe it was Detroit. It could have been Philadelphia or something. But it was not.
No, really. It was Detroit. Come on.
God.
Sorry to anybody who's from Detroit. I've never seen.
Don't be sorry. They know.
Oh, wow. I've never seen Short Circuit 2. I've only seen bits and pieces from the original, but that sounds horrific, especially if you're a kid watching that shit. That fucked me up too.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, that reminds me of the fucking Toontown, or what is that? Fucking Roger Rabbit, where Judge Doom dips the shoe into the dip and it disintegrates the shoe character. Do you guys remember that?
I don't remember. It's been a long time since.
Oh my god, that scene is truly affecting. Actually, it's the same sort of thing where it's a cartoon shoe, and Christopher Lloyd as the evil Judge Doom is putting it into what's essentially ink remover is the concept, and it just disintegrates cartoon characters. And just dips it in, and it's crying and weeping, and then it just dies, and that's it.
In Shrek, they torture a gingerbread man.
Yeah, true. But it's just scumbag buttons, bro. And then eventually he comes back for the musical outro. So I think
that's true. I think it's fine.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Miles. That sounds super fucked up. Maybe we'll talk about that movie on the show one day. It sounds pretty horrific.
Ooh.
I don't know. Last but not least, we do have a voicemail. Or not voicemail, sorry, an email from Matt. Matt sent us an email. He wanted to talk about some of his thoughts on the new Candyman movie. Matt says, hello, Gentlemangs. Had some thoughts on the new Candyman movie I wanted to share, as it differed with what you were saying on the episode on the movie. Sorry I'm late to the party. Candyman and its ending seemed to make more sense to me than it came across to you guys, and I think it was because we were looking at the situation overall differently. We're not dealing with a haunted house or area. Cabrini Green isn't haunted, not supernaturally anyways, nor is Daniel Robitaille a wraith or cursed person based on this movie. I don't believe Candyman is any single person. I believe Candyman is a haunted story, a story that needs to be told and retold to stay alive, and like some satanic game of telephone, it changes with each retelling and mutates with each unreliable narrator. An incorporeal vampire, the Candyman legend sucks in every local tragedy it can to grow stronger as a story and in belief by the audience. Robitaille was just the first spark, a lodestone to the story, but still just one stone. Anthony McCoy was to be a sacrifice to Candyman in the first movie, but the ritual was interrupted. Until Anthony was stung by a bee in the exact field where he was supposed to die as a baby, I believe Candyman is basically a demigod of imagination, and I believe it has some minor pulls and pushes on destiny, such as making people want to be an artist and wear ugly coats. Much closer to Pennywise than Jason Voorhees. It is multiple stories that is really one story, birthed by the whole of American cruelty to one's neighbor. Or I could be full of shit. Matt from Jacksonville. P.S. Have Nicole on more. All right. Thank you, Matt.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
Yeah, that's an interesting take that I haven't really heard. The only thing that kind of derailed it at the end was the guy who is a mute or whatever, who got his beaten to death at the beginning, like in the 70s or whatever. He wasn't an artist or anything like that. So he just happened to wear the same coat.
Well, yeah. I mean, I see what he's saying though. Like at least like purely on a metaphor standpoint, I think it hangs together really well with that.
Yeah,
movie.
that is it. It's a good assessment.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it from the idea of like, I don't know, justice being served through blood and shit like that, and then just like fear taking all that shit. But we didn't really talk about it in regards to what he's talking about, which is the word of mouth, the folklore aspect. Mm-hmm. And I think comparing it to it as opposed to Jason Voorhees, that's a pretty interesting comparison. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, I agree. I like the idea. Like, we're definitely tying it to Daniel Robitaille's character very hard because like we've seen the original movies. But I guess if you kind of like loosen your grip on the OG and just kind of look at the newer movie as it is, and consider that maybe it is just like it's a haunted, it's a cursed story. It's cursed reality, unfortunately. But like people retell the story, and that fuels the idea of Candyman and the horror of Candyman, which it's cool to ponder on. And I like that idea. I don't know that it's like totally nailed in the movie, but maybe I just need to rewatch it through that lens.
I want to watch it with that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I want to rewatch it with that idea. It's kind of a fascinating point of view.
Yeah, good thoughts, Matt. Thank you for sharing for sure. I don't think you're full of shit on this one. I think you're definitely on the tail of what the filmmaker was trying to get after, really. So thank you.
This one's to you.
Yeah.
Rigatoni.
I know how you like it.
Mispronounced. That's how you like it. So yeah, again, if you are listening, want to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Do you guys have any prompts you want to throw out for next week?
Hotline Kinks. What's your crazy Halloween sex stories?
Tell me if you made it in a coffin.
You ever make it in a coffin? Or like in a cemetery, or like in a weird
graveyard,
place?
Coffin.
What's the weirdest place you ever spread your seed? That's what
in the spirit of Miles' call, though, I also want to, as a side thing, if you have a child's or children or family movie that creeped you out a lot that you want to talk about, call in about that too. I'm always interested in that topic.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, like the Beaches.
The Witches, yeah. Like for me, it's Return to Oz. I go to that every time.
Kinder trauma stuff. Gremlins fucked me up, son. God damn.
That Mugwise just not nice. Just
dude,
not a nice guy.
God damn, I felt so bad bad for Gizmo. That shit was terrible. Anyway, call in. Let us know where you spread your seed that's fucked up and weird, and also what movie terrified you as a kid. We want to know. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show, as always. This is going to be the last Patreon pick of the third quarter of 2021. The movie is called Jack O from 1995. This was chosen by our good friend Matt G. Thanks for hitting us up on Patreon, Matt, showing us some love. Slam your eyeballs into Jack O. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at STRA_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. Don't forget about our Elvira watch party, Saturday, September 25th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll post a link on all of our socials to join in on the Zoom watch party. Till next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
It was a marriage to the beast.